Come take a look at the old second edition Sisters of Battle Codex in today's 40K Flashback.
Spiky bits.
What's up, Hobby Maniacs? Baer with you again today with a little blast from the past. Now, if you've been following the new release kind of wire and keeping an eye on what's going on with Games Workshop and what's coming soon, you probably recognize this image right here. This is the classic John Blanche artwork that, of course, adorned the cover of the Sisters of Battle Codex all those years ago. I want to say this was 93, but it could have been as late as 1995 when this book came out, but we'll find out on the copyright here. Today, this would be a kind of like a supplement size release. It's only about 60 some pages, give or take, but I remember back then this book cost about $25 because I had to save up some money to pick it up. Unfortunately, it was things were expensive back then, just as they are today. Hobbies have never ever been cheap. Now, you might be like, why is that book so thin? Well, Sisters have never really had a large wealth of content to draw from, I suppose. These are similar books of the time, the Ultramarine book and the Chaos book. And Chaos is different because Chaos is so thick, rather, is because it was all of Chaos in here. And the Marines actually all had their separate chapter kind of factions back then. So the Marine one's, of course, a little bit thicker than the Sisters one. And they really didn't start doing a Codex Space Marine kind of Codex rule offering until, I want to say it was 3rd edition, and everybody was like, wait, we're not getting separate codexes? What's going on? And then that's kind of the standard up to, 7th edition going into 8th edition today. So obviously, this Canoness will be coming out in miniature form. Games Workshop said that you can pick them up on their site if your local game store doesn't get any. Now, it's written by Gav Thorpe. Obviously, rulebook cover by John Blanche. Interior art, John Blanche, Wayne England, the late Wayne England, and a whole bunch of other artists that you may or may not have heard of by this point here. And what I really like about checking out these older books is just a wealth of old scratch-built terrain, and you can really tell how the hobby was really rustic back then, and you didn't have all these options that we have today. Mike McVeigh was actually part of the team back then and really did a lot of work building all this stuff in the background, and all the heavy metal team. I mean, I can tell you right here, this was a piece off the old metal Thunderhawk ship, believe it or not. They actually did that, and that was a piece. A lot of this other stuff here is just scratch built. I think that cup up there is actually a piece that came separately at some point with I want to say a preacher's pulpit, but I can't remember exactly. As far as the contents go, not a lot of stuff's going to be relevant today as far as the army lists go, but I wanted to check out some of the special characters in the back to show you guys how they've evolved and morphed through the years. Explains like the organization of the ecclesiarchy, the Fraterus militia. I think they were actually disbanded, and that's why the sisters became who they were, because you couldn't have men in arms. Some of the important people here, like Sebastian Thor, High Lord Vandre, were basically in the Reign of Blood, the Age of Apostasy, all this great fluff right here. We didn't have Wikipedia, we didn't have all that stuff back then. We had to get these books and read these books, and that's how we kept track of the fluff in our heads almost, the Ministorum. So it was like a combination almost of a couple of different, imperial elements all into one book. You could almost say this is the very first version of a Codex Demon Hunters almost, or an Inquisition Codex basically, because that's kind of what it was. Lots more arting here from John Blanche. There's the Emperor himself in the Golden Throne, one of the many depictions he's done. One of the Arch Confessor model, he's still in existence today. I'm not sure if you can still purchase him, but he's out there. And then the story of the Age of Apostasy. We just did a big series on spiky bits on lore on the Age of Apostasy and why the sisters were created and why that whole situation happened. And then a Reformation, the Sebastian Thor. It follows a lot of loose Martin Luther kind of lines, if you're into religion and you've studied a lot of that stuff. A lot of I forget what they call it, Luther Evangel, I don't know, whatever it was called. But back then, that whole thing when the printing press was invented, and it turned into a whole thing in human history. You can read about it on the internet, and there's another piece of the artwork. And then we've got the organization, basically how the sororities are, I can never say that right. I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments exactly how I was supposed to say it and what dialect, because you guys are very helpful. Let's see, and some of the Order's militants. There's the battle systems themselves, the old pewter miniatures. Of course, we would love to see some plastic stuff in the near future, but who knows if that's really in the cards. The old Mark 1 Rhino right there, the emulator with lots of pewter bits. I kind of miss those days. And then there they are. That was every single sister model, minus some of the preachers and such, that was available back then. Now, Games Workshop sculpted a couple and added them with those crazy faceplates, but for the most part, that's pretty much it. So then they get into a little of this right here, like some more Blanche concept art. And that guy definitely looks like Mephiston, slightly morphed over to be part of the Imperial Use Aramon. Oh, it's like conversions. Oh, that's cool. Ecclesiarchy conversions. Neat. I dig that. So there's the original conversion corner right there, huh? It's very cool stuff in here. And then they had these banners. You could actually copy the pages and then print them out and fold them over to make your banners. Banner bears would just come with that long stem right there. More the Sisters of Battle did. This is the old Datafacts. You used to have these. They actually produced game aids back in the day that you could print out, or they would be on cardboard and you could use them in game right there. The idea was to print this out and you'd have the 2 pages and fold it over. I kind of wish they did that today. Make it keeping track of things a lot better. And then we get into more stories, more background of things, and then they start talking about a lot of the rules that don't necessarily pertain to things today. There was actually 2 different. There was a large flamer template and a kind of like a smaller little chubbier one, kind of about that big. That was actually the hand flamer template that a lot of these could spit out, and those were pretty hilarious when they dropped in on you. It was no es bueno, because both of their little hand flamers could fire. I got roasted a couple of times by them. And here's some of the special characters, some of you haven't heard of, but from the Ophelia 7 planet. That's where the Ecclesiarchy moved to, and then after a while moved back to Terra. But they left the Covenant or whatever of the Sisters back there. That's kind of where they stayed. That was like their fortress monastery. I actually think the Necrons got them or the Tyranids got them, but there was a lot of battles on that planet around Millennium 40. I actually should look that up in the fluff to see how that all turned out, because I remember reading a lot of White Dwarf articles where they're fighting over that particular area. I'm sure it's made it into the fluff by now. All that White Dwarf stuff seems to have. Uriah Jacobs, if you remember that guy, he has the staff with the metal skeleton on top of it and a shoddy. He's pretty dope. Redemptor Kiranoff, that was the big guy with the kind of palpable hat that was in the art in the front. Of course, I'm not going to be able to find it again, but I think he was this way. Maybe I'll be able to find it. Oh, there he is. Boop. There he is. And some other folks we haven't heard of. Cardinal Amadis Hellfire. I don't know who he is, but... And then they're more of that scratch-built terrain with some of the elements from the Necromunda terrain right there, probably by Mike McVeigh himself. And there's a sister going up against Fabius Bile. So very cool stuff there. This is a venerable book. It's a venerable... Oh, we didn't check the copyright. Let's see when this came out. It came out in 1997. A lot later than I remember. I guess that was the tail end of second edition there. I think third edition came out in 99, 2000, right going into 2000, I want to say. So very neat book, and obviously we're getting that iconic sister Canoness on the front as a exclusive air quotes figure. I don't know if that's exactly true, but she's coming out soon, and we're seeing a lot more made to order sisters, a lot more sisters on the way. Fingers crossed for Plastic Sisters in the future.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.